Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on Mastering Master Protocols and Advancing Platform Trial Research, a clinical content and reuse and EU-PEARL collaboration. My name is Stacy Teagan, and I'll be moderating the session today. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll give you an overview of our agenda. I believe we have next. Great. So you won't hear from me too much. I'll just set the ground rules, etc., and we'll move right into our experts. We'll learn about the history and the remit of the EU-PEARL project. Then we'll learn about the connection made to the TransCelerate Clinical Content and Reuse Initiative. We'll go through the EU-PEARL deliverables and go through a piece around leveraging master protocol value in the common protocol template. And we'll end with some Q&A with our esteemed panelists. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce our panel of speakers. Today we have from Sanofi, we have Madhvi Gee-Jain. We have Marilyn Mercado from Novartis. Both Madhvi and Marilyn are on our clinical content and reuse team within TransCelerate. We have Peter Messenbrink, who also joins us from Novartis, and Cecile Speerts. I just want to give a call out to Cecile. She was integral in the initiative of EU-PEARL, as well as planning for the webinar today, but unfortunately was not able to join. So panelists, I'll ask you all to give an additional intro when we turn to your portion. For now, I just want to, on the next slide, we'll go to a few logistics for today's webinar in the GoToWebinar platform. For audio, we would suggest either joining through your computer or your phone. The audio button is here. We will have participants muted though, so you should be able to hear, likely not speak. If you do have a question that you would like to speak, we have a question panel. You can see the short buttons up in the top right. Feel free to post a question at any time during the session. We'll be moderating those questions for any logistical challenges. We'll hold content questions to the end. If we don't get to them all, I promise you they're still valuable to the speaker, so please feel free to put in your questions. And then I want to remind everyone that the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be provided out to attendees. Next slide, I'll just quickly review some ground rules for the discussion today. Just want to highlight that participation by our speakers, by our attendees, everything is voluntary, as well as adoption of the TransCelerate solutions. It's up to those who are executing to comply with the laws and regulations in the use of those solutions. When you post a question, don't feel that you have to include your company. Feel free to do that anonymously. I think a few things we cannot discuss. We can't discuss what vendors, sites, CROs, companies are using or not using. We can't discuss any issues having with particular vendors, etc. We won't discuss long-term product development plans. We may discuss long-term plans for TransCelerate and EU-PEARL deliverables, but we won't do anything around pricing, etc. We'll keep it really at the industry ecosystem level and really focus on the solutions today. So with that, I'll just give you a very brief background around our collaboration piece, if you want to go to the next slide. In TransCelerate, our clinical content and reuse initiative has been around for quite a while. I've been lucky enough to be involved with it since 2014, and we've had many successes within our membership, and I'm pleased today that we're able to highlight one of the successful collaborations we've had with external parties as well. Within CC&R, we've brought together our many member companies and the great learnings and best practices and tried to incorporate all of those into the assets that are available for public download. We have the clinical template suite, protocol, SAP, and CSR. We've incorporated a number of learnings over the years, including pandemic-related disrupted study guidance, gender-neutral language, and complex trial designs. Our approach for developing these solutions does include collaborating outside of the TransCelerate membership, which is, of course, only sponsors, so it's important to collaborate outside. And some examples where we have had some really great success collaborating externally was with the points to consider for disrupted studies, where we partnered with ACRO, who also had some input from regulators on that. And then our collaboration with MRCT and with the SGM Alliance to get to that gender neutral language. Today, on the next slide, we will focus on the collaboration with the EU-PEARL team. This has actually been going on for a number of years. I believe our first conversation was in fall 2021. And we found two groups who were working on related but different initiatives, and were able to come together to really share some learnings and really learn from each other and evolve the solutions to really result in a greater benefit of all of the deliverables. So I'm very happy today to bring to you our team, which spans multiple organizations and multiple collaborations. And with that, I will turn it over to Madhvi, who will give us history and remit of EU-PEARL. Madhvi?
Thank you, Stacy. So it is quite an honor and a pleasure for me to speak regarding the EU-PEARL history and the remit of EU-PEARL. Cecile was our speaker for this section. Unfortunately, she could not make it. So I am very happy to talk about the EU-PEARL consortium. And first of all, I would like to start off by saying that EU-PEARL stands for EU Patient-Centric Clinical Trial Platforms. And this was a public and private partnership funded by the Innovative Medicines Initiative, which was a partnership between the European Union and the pharmaceutical industry to support research and innovation in life sciences. And this partnership has been active since 2019. And it had a shared vision of transforming clinical trials and making them more efficient and patient-centered. EU-PEARL was an excellent way in which to share knowledge, and also it allowed for open discussion amongst the various stakeholders that took part in this consortium. So EU-PEARL was a key part of the overall approach of the European Commission of improving the landscape of clinical trials in Europe. The new European Commission, the heads of medicines agencies, and the European Medicine Agency have launched an initiative to transform how clinical trials are initiated, designed, and run. And most of you might be familiar. It is called Accelerating Clinical Trials, or ACT-EU. So this this ACT-EU builds on the application of the new clinical trial regulations, as well as the launch of the Clinical Trial Information System, which is the CTIS. And what ACT-EU would like is to strengthen the European environment for clinical trials while maintaining a high level of protection for the trial participants, ensuring data robustness and transparency that the EU citizens can expect. So the EU project received funding from Innovative Medicines Initiative, and this was supported by the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations, the Children's Tumor Foundation, the Global Alliance for Tuberculosis Drug Development, and SpringWorks Therapeutics. So what EU-PEARL provided was an international ethical and scientific quality standard for designing and conducting trials that involved the participation of human subjects. So we all know that with COVID, there was a heightened awareness of the importance to design trials where multiple therapies could be simultaneously tested. So EU-PEARL undertook this challenge and developed an innovative generic framework known as the Integrated Research Platform. And this platform allows for significantly improving and accelerating medicine development and thus allowing for speedier access to new and more effective treatments. Next slide, please. So who was involved? As you can see, over 3 years, 36 leading organizations representing patients, clinicians, researchers, authorities, and industry had worked together to develop this generic framework and set of tools to facilitate the design, setup, implementation of patient-centric collaborative platform trials in Europe. So this was done under the leadership of Valdehebron Institute in Spain and Janssen, and the EU-PEARL consortium brought together a diverse mix of expertise from key players in the international clinical research ecosystem. This included regulators through the links established with the EMA and the participation of PI, which is the Paul Ehrlich Institute of for Vaccines and Biomedicines in Frankfurt, patients through a pan-European patient advocacy group called EPF, which represents 67 organizations and about 150 million patients, healthcare providers, university hospitals, academic institutions like the University of Oxford, King's College, and the University of Vienna, research centers, research infrastructures like IATRIS and ICRINS, a health technology assessment body called Euroscan, small and medium-sized enterprises which provided SMEs like Berry, who provided us with statistical consultation, TMIT research, and of course the industry partners, including Sanofi, Novartis, Janssen, Pfizer, Allergan, Novo Nordisk, Otsuka, and Teva, and also some IMI associated partners, the ones that I had mentioned before, the Children's Tumor Foundation, the TB Alliance, and SpringWorks. Next slide, please. So the outcomes from EU-PEARL include templates, guidance documents, and other resources such as an extensive network of sites, which will ensure that adequate patients or participants are available to better support the research communities while conducting the integrated research platform trials. As you can see, there were many work streams that were established, and one of them was, they were all called work packages. So we had work package 1, which dealt with the governance that would be required for such a platform trial. And many of the ethical and governance policy documents were fundamentally unchanged from the more traditional forms of clinical trials, although some of them did require adaptation for the more complex data sharing arrangements that occurred during platform trials. The work package 2 dealt with the scientific, regulatory, and operational methodology, and Peter and I were a part of this working group. And in this working group, EU-PEARL developed a comprehensive glossary of terms with the objective of educating people and building knowledge around complex trials. But beyond terminology, they also developed a large number of tools, some of which that we will talk about today. And this was to help conduct these trials in a seamless manner. The work package 3 developed a clinical network and a patient level data network. And what they did was they built an information and communication technology platform for protocol feasibility and patient recruitment. And what this did involve was the reuse of hospital electronic health record data. So this was interesting because they used this data to understand better how these what was the patient population, so that they could come up with profiles and stratify the patients who would most benefit from platform trials. So they conducted this in 4 different major disease areas. What they did was they looked at disease areas which were very different from each other, so that they could develop a generic framework. And the project had chosen these 4 contrasting disease areas to inform and validate the design. And the 4 disease areas had domain experts who examined the state of the art medical knowledge in order to identify the research topics which would lend to further drug development and clinical trials. So the 4 disease areas that were chosen was major depressive disorder, TB, NASH, and neurofibromatosis. Next slide, please. So I will then talk about how we connected with TransCelerate and how we joined forces, and which led to an extremely good collaboration. And we would like to share the results of this collaboration with you today. So next slide, please. As you know, that TransCelerate is a non-for-profit entity which has been created to foster collaboration. Their mission is to improve the health of the people around the world by accelerating and simplifying the research and development of innovative new therapies. So since 2012, passionate leaders and subject matter experts from TransCelerate member companies have volunteered their time to design, develop, deliver, and socialize solutions to advance the TransCelerate mission. Next slide, please. So TransCelerate has designed, developed, and delivered more than 400 solutions and implementation tools to address the R&D ecosystem pain points and seek transformational opportunities. Most of these solutions are free for public download and use if you go to their site. So And I would also like to add that Sanofi is a proud member of TransCelerate, and membership is available to pharmaceutical research and development organizations that engage in innovative discovery, development, and manufacturing of new medicines. So if any company would like to join TransCelerate, they can approach TransCelerate and see if they would qualify to be a member. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, EU-PEARL was exploring the use of a single master protocol, and this was a key source document that was needed to fulfill the trial's conduct obligations, which required the examination of the templates which are used to fulfill the dynamic and modern drug development environment that we are in. So as a long-standing member of TransCelerate's CC&R workstream, and having been involved in the evolution of the Common Protocol template, while also being a representative for Sanofi in Work Package 2 in EU-PEARL, I just made the proposal to the Work Package 2 to see if we could use TransCelerate's Common Protocol template to create this unique master protocol. And the initial request was to base all EU-PEARL templates on the CTS suite. So what did happen is I will briefly walk you through our timeline of the collaboration. So initial contact was made with TransCelerate in August of 2020. And then we started exploring the collaboration, and the teams met to clarify the deliverables, the approaches. There was a lot of internal discussion within TransCelerate and EU-PEARL. In the fall of 2021, the meetings began. We started discussing with each other, EU-PEARL, as well as with TransCelerate, how we could utilize the clinical template suite. TransCelerate was very generous, and they shared the lessons that they had learned, and also there were some joint presentations at BIO as well as at the DIA. So in 2022, we made a joint presentation at the Global DIA meeting. And after that, we continued to support and advise each other with TransCelerate participating in EU-PEARL's public workshops where we reached out to the public and informed them of all the benefits and all the achievements from this consortium. In May of 2023, the EU-PEARL assets were officially released, and TransCelerate was instrumental in promoting these assets by providing a direct link to the EU-PEARL website. And also we were very involved in discussing with TransCelerate the options for sustaining our templates, because the EU website will be gone in 5 years. So sustainability is key. Next slide, please. So essentially, as a result of all this excellent good collaboration between EU-PEARL and TransCelerate, we were able to, with this sustainable and reusable systematic approach to IRP trials, we could design a structure that was designed by EU-PEARL, but based on TransCelerate templates, which was able to meet complex regulatory, ethical, legal, statistical, and data sharing requirements. So as a result of this collaboration, there has been significant output. First of all, we did generate templates for the master protocol, as well as intervention-specific appendix, which sometimes is also known as the sub-protocol. Then we had a statistical analysis plan template. This effort also, as I mentioned, since the EU-PEARL website is only there for 5 years, we have now a publication where all these templates are available, and you can go to this publication and find the templates in the appendices. We also have provided a link to the EU-PEARL site where you can go and explore and also look at the templates that have been created. I mentioned the DIA Global 2022 presentation, and this was focused on the new tools for creating flexible and sustainable master protocols. And to close the loop, it was interesting because not only did EU-PEARL learn from TransCelerate, but TransCelerate took some of the learnings from EU-PEARL. And when the next version of the Common Protocol template was released, some of these learnings were incorporated into the template. And we also worked together to develop a new asset which guides anyone who would like to have a master protocol, some of the design considerations that should be taken into account. It's interesting because it asks the person or the organization questions which tell whether a master protocol approach is a good approach for the particular clinical trial. So this has been a model for future collaborations between TransCelerate and other industry stakeholders. And this is a good example of tapping the expertise where it lives and making use of the knowledge that we all have. And I am sure that we will hear of many more such collaborations between TransCelerate and other industry initiatives. And I will hand it over to Peter now.
Good day to all. I will take the next few minutes to go through with you all the things that were delivered from EU-PEARL, in particular the tools that are available, as well as some information on the statistical analysis plan. Next slide. So with EU-PEARL, the goal was obviously to provide end users with a set of provisional generic platform trial templates that can be used in any disease area, either in a multi-sponsor setting, or it's also possible that it's possible to be done in a single sponsor setting too as well. With this, we made available a provisional master protocol template, which gives the general information that's applicable to all interventions that can be evaluated. With the whole goal of master protocol template when studying multiple interventions is that we have commonality across all of the interventions being studied, so that we have a sharing and we're not having to reinvent the wheel with every new intervention. However, it's possible that not everything is 100% the same. This is why we have provisional intervention specific appendix. which focus on topics that may be different between interventions. For example, drug administration, inclusion and exclusion criteria, specific biomarkers that are related to safety or mode of action, as well as safety events of special interest. And these two templates are form the basis of the common protocol template from TransCelerate version 8 in 2020. One of the key things to minimize confusion when having sort of a separate intervention-specific appendix for each new intervention that enters into the platform trial is that we maintain the same section numbering as the master protocol, and we refer back to the core master protocol if the content is the same. In addition to this, we have a provisional statistical analysis plan template, as well as a provisional data monitoring chart template, as well as a guidance document for supplementary information to the clinical trial reporting cover letter for the EU. This may be something new to some. The whole purpose of this is obviously to be as transparent as possible when new interventions are added on an ongoing basis. The platform trials, people have an understanding of what is the same and what may be potentially new with the adding of the additional intervention. Next slide. So one may ask ourselves the question, why are the document tools separated into master protocols, ISAs, and the cover letter? Well, in the platform trial, interventions can interventions can enter and exit continuously through the lifetime of the platform trial, and there's examples out there of platform trials that have gone on for as long as 15 to 20 years. And so the master protocol gives the overall big picture of what is common to all intervention cohorts. And obviously, if you were to change the main master protocol every time a new intervention entered, and have it in track changes mode, this might become unreadable as more and more details are added to the main document compared to having a separate ISA which contains all the new information applicable to the new interventions. Hence, the ISA was to give us what is specific for this intervention and its targeted population. Obviously, the strategy is to try to avoid having major protocol amendments to the master protocol, and thus the cover letter will enable us and be able to have an easy comparison of the entire platform trial across all the sub-studies and the tracking of any protocol amendments. Next slide. So going into a little more detail here on master protocol and intervention-specific appendices. The master protocol governs the entire study, includes obviously the common key study design elements. These may include obviously disease of interest, objectives and endpoints, include exclusion criteria, the overall benefit risk of the entire study, any methodology involved, any operational considerations, and key statistical considerations that are applicable across all of the interventions. And obviously within this, we obviously feed in as many intervention-specific appendices that are relevant for information that's specific to that intervention. And obviously, interventions can enter the platform trial simultaneously or sequentially as they become available for the study. And this obviously is a tricky element, as those who are involved in the design of such trials. Often there is a centralized committee that determines what is the new intervention to enter, and obviously, in order to be able to understand what it all means, we obviously conduct simulations to be able to understand how the timing of sort of and the gap between entry of interventions impacts the overall design and its execution. And it's important to realize that both protocols, both the master protocol and the relevant intervention-specific appendices, are needed to have all the information that's needed to conduct the study in a specific intervention cohort. Next slide. here we see sort of the overall development process that occurred during the whole EU-PEARL process. And this is a build slide, so please be a little patient with us. Obviously, back when we started this, I was involved in the actual writing of the research proposal, which we actually started in 2017. Back in 2019, after we had a face-to-face meeting in Barcelona, we began working on a glossary of terminology and trial scenarios. And to do this, we actually went and interviewed some of the well-established platform trials and their team to understand sort of what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, what are the key things one needs to know to be able to build up sort of a knowledge base that can be used for the different audiences. It's from here we also kicked off a patient advisory group, and also then obviously what happened was the pandemic hit, but that didn't slow EU-PEARL down. We still work continuously and virtually, sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times a day across geographic regions. And with this, we developed a set of provisional templates, and we had stakeholder workshops. Our first stakeholder workshop was held in October of 2020, and before this, we actually had, as part of our first draft of the templates, we actually met with the different sort of use cases that are being developed as part of EU-PEARL to get sort of their feedback on what would be needed for them to implement it in their trials. Next animation. So once we went through this initial stakeholder workshop and got some feedback, we actually also drafted the first version of the clinical operations best practice tool. What this is basically a very, very sort of large Excel spreadsheet, which basically goes through all the steps from the planning, design, execution, analysis that are needed for the conduct of integrated research platforms and platform trials with multiple intervention products from multiple pharma companies. And obviously, with this, we came up with interim versions of the templates, and the refinement process was sort of continuous, and we obviously have revisions of provisional templates that led to obviously a final version. But as part of this, we obviously also had a review done by many stakeholders, both within EU-PEARL as well as externally. We got feedback from CTCG, who did a thorough review of our template suite. They give us advice. And while this was going on, we also developed clinical trial simulation tools to help teams design the best platform trial that sort of met their needs, as well as to get different scenarios so that when one goes and meets with health authority, you have different possible scenarios to discuss with and come up with the best design. Next animation. Then after multiple iterations, we were able to come up with a final set of templates in spring of 2023 that were submitted as part of the end package with IMI, and these are publicly available. We actually were able to have an in-person workshop in September of 2022 as some of the restrictions of the pandemic wore down. That was very helpful to get us all our ducks in a row and to go through some of the CTCG format. And this allowed us to come up with a good set of tools that are available now for all to use in their respective platform trials. Next. So as mentioned, we did go out and get a CTCG review and feedback so we could ensure we were being compliant with regulations. The CTC review included a review of our master protocol template, our provisional intervention-specific appendix, as well as the guidance for supplementary information to the CTR cover letter. And what this feedback told us was it highlighted that they highlighted that providing separate appendices for new interventions is only one option, and obviously it's to be done as one protocol document. Although I think if we were to ask, I think we would advise to keep them separate for the reasons we talked about earlier. And obviously, many comments that we received were driven by source templates used as the basis of development because we were basing everything on the common protocol template from TransCelerate. Obviously, we were trying to use as much text as possible from there, and some of the text we were trying to keep the same to be able to tie into the TransCelerate templates. And many comments that we would have addressed were aligned with the UCTR, and so that obviously there had to be this sort of education from the feedback received. And that we are well aware that future changes may be needed once ICH M11 comes out to address, and this will obviously be addressed as part of the sustainability plan for EU-PEARL and its template suite. Next slide. So how have the suite of templates been used to date? Next iteration. So obviously within EU-PEARL, they were used to develop platform trials in 4 use cases: major depressive disorder, or MDD, tuberculosis, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, or non-metabolic steatohepatitis, or NASH or MASH, and neurofibromatosis, or NF. Next iteration. The NASH platform trial protocol received positive regulatory feedback from the FDA through a critical path initiative meeting in January 2022, as well as from the EMA through an innovative task force meeting in November 2022. The major depressive disorder platform trial also got health authority feedback through an ITF meeting in January 2022. Next animation. And a good success story, following the completion of EU-PEARL in April 2023, the neurofibromatosis platform trial has found sponsors, the Global Coalition for Adaptive Research and the Children's Tumor Foundation, and they are currently in the process of seeking investigational treatments for inclusion. And the link to this website will be made available upon request from this meeting. Next slide. So from the overall sustainability perspective, obviously, Madhavi highlighted the publication with the templates which are available in the trial publication from earlier this year, which are available in the appendix. Next. On the EU webpage, EU-PEARL webpage, obviously, we have master protocol template, which is also with a link to the ECRIN, where obviously future versions will be stored and maintained, as well as for the intervention appendix, and the SAP, which also will be versioned on the ECRIN website. The DMC template is hosted by Berry Consulting and maintained there as well. And the cover letter guidance, which obviously as on the EU-PEARL website and its original document, and any future versions will be versioned on the ECRIN website. Next. And the ECRIN webpage obviously links back to the EU-PEARL webpage, and so we are able to coordinate any feedback on its usage and determine if changes would improve the content for the suite of templates. Probably the first sort of potential update will likely occur as part of the ICH M11 release. And of course, there's links available to the Berry webpage with the link to the EU-PEARL webpage and the hosts, and they will be hosting and maintaining the DMC charter template. And last but not least, obviously there's a link on the course webpage, which links back to EU-PEARL. And within TransCelerate, we have communication about EU-PEARL as a very fine user story for the master protocol template and ISH with a link back to page. So lots of places where you can get your information. With that, I believe I will transition to Marilyn Mercado, who will give us information on the leveraging master protocol value with CPT.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks so much, and thank you for having me. So I'm going to close by sharing how the collaboration between TransCelerate and EU-PEARL has really come full circle, with TransCelerate leveraging what we've learned about master protocols from our interaction with our colleagues at EU-PEARL to update the Common Protocol Template, or CPT. Next slide, please. And as Madhavi shared, version 10 of the Common Protocol Template, which was released earlier this year, has been revised to reflect lessons learned related to master protocol design. And the next two slides really list out specifically which sections have been updated within the Common Protocol Template version 10. And I think that the new CPT really reflects a lot of these learnings. I won't go through each of them in detail, but some instruction has been added around how to title your protocol, how to number amendments, how to present the number of participants per cohort, and a reminder to add information about any committees that have been added as a result of the master protocol sub-protocol structure. There is also new information about how to present the overview description of the disease, population, and treatment in the introduction section, and a little bit of guidance about how to describe the rationale. You'll also see in the new CPT there are a few sections, such as the schedule of activities section, the study population section, so the inclusion-exclusion criteria section, and the clinical laboratory tests section, where you'll find instruction to detail the assessments and the criteria that are specific to a sub-protocol within that sub-protocol, with common assessments and criteria presented in the master protocol. Next slide, please. Also, in the objectives, endpoints, and estimates section of the CPT, instruction is provided on having an overarching hypothesis and a consistent primary objective. There is also new guidance or recommendation about how to distinguish between trial completion for the participant, the cohort, and the trial. There's now additional guidance in the statistical analysis section, and also in the informed consent section, there is instruction on a two-step process for consent, where consent is provided for the master protocol and then subsequently for the sub-protocol. Next slide, please. And in addition to the updates that were made to the CPT based on learnings from EU-PEARL and member companies, TransCelerate is also releasing a document that's called Planning and Designing Considerations for Master Protocols, which, as it states, provides key considerations for planning and designing a protocol for complex studies. And it's a concise document. It can be used as a tool for sponsors, and it aligns with the framework provided by the FDA, EMA, CTFG, and EU-PEARL. And sections within the document include protocol design considerations, which provides information on structure and organization, questions to consider prior to designing a study with a master and sub-protocol design. There's also included a list of potential advantages, such as adaptive decision-making and the ability to leverage a common control group. And finally, there is a list of potential challenges, such as operational and statistical complexities to think through. Next slide, please. So what's next for TransCelerate in the space of platform trials? TransCelerate continues to explore opportunities to enable the greater use of platform trial designs and also ways to address platform trial related operational barriers. And with that, I think we can turn it over to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Mary Lynn and Madhvi and Peter for the great session. Thanks to all the attendees for their questions in the chat. We do have quite a number of questions. I'd like to invite all the panelists to come back on camera so we can address some of the questions here. A note to our attendees, we will be sending out a follow-up to the webinar with the recording. We are tallying all the questions. I don't think we'll get to them all today, but one of the things I wanted to know, many of the questions are around where the resources sit and how do you access them. So we will include links. It's worth noting that today we're presenting solutions that span multiple organizations. So some of them are on the TransCelerate website and some are being made available through EU-PEARL. So we acknowledge that can be a little confusing. So we'll be sure to provide some links for you all there today. I will turn to our panelists. First, I want to address this to all three and maybe keep it brief. What did you get out of the collaboration that you could not have done within the individual initiative? Madhvi, you spoke first, if you want to answer this question first, and then I'll go to Peter and Mary Lynn.
Sure, Stacy. So I really think that this was an excellent example of how we can use the expertise that is available and build on it. It made things a lot more easier once we had this collaboration ongoing with TransCelerate, because we could tap into them and get some lessons learned on how to proceed. So I feel that it really accelerated the development and the design of the templates by EU-PEARL.
Thanks. And actually, I'm going to interrupt and adjust course here. Peter, as you answer that, I'm going to add a question to you. A two-part question, and I'll do the same for you, Mary Lynn. Two-part question. One, what did you get out of the collaboration retrospectively? And then going forward, what do you see as for the EU-PEARL or for industry? What do you see as a key action that needs to be taken or a key next step going forward? So retrospective and forward look from you, Peter, and then one from you, Mary Lynn.
Okay. Looking back, I can concur with Madhvi. It's always helpful to have different people looking at the problem from a different perspective and be able to share knowledge and experiences for those. This is my first experience in template development, and so it was helpful for those who have been involved in the practical template sort of experience within TransCelerate. So we were able to build and share on that knowledge to make sort of the development process easier. I think going forward, it's going to be important from a sustainability perspective to be able to get as many people in the research and scientific community to be able to use the templates and be open and transparent about feedback, so we can learn what's working well, what's not working well, so that we can be adaptive over the course of time to get the best set of tools available to the end users so that they can. So our whole goal is to be able to improve the efficiency by which we do clinical trials, so we can bring new innovative medicines to patients and save lives. So I think it's important for us to be continuously adaptive so that we're able to meet the needs of patients.
Thank you, Peter. It does feel like we're only at the beginning of this journey, really. Thank you. Mary Lynn, same question to you, a retrospective and a forward looking?
Sure. I think the collaboration really showed a lot of creativity, which I loved. I think EU-PEARL really successfully demonstrated that the TransCelerate Common Protocol template could be used as a foundation to build upon, to really extend its applicability and adapt it to complex trial design and to the changing clinical trial ecosystem. I think looking forward, blue sky, big picture, being very passionate about protocol digitization, I think we could also start to address what the technical needs are that are specific to that master protocol, sub-protocol design, thinking about things like building out the USDM and also maybe how to structure the data elements between the master protocol and the sub-protocol.
Great, great. Thank you. Mary Lynn, I'm going to stay with you. We have a specific question about ICHM11. I know you're part of ICHM11. Can you speak to kind of a future looking point around that? How does ICHM11 play to both the Common Protocol template and the deliverables from EU-PEARL?
Absolutely. So in terms of designing the ICHM11 protocol template, the key was really to provide a harmonized structure, but also to enable flexibility and adaptability. And again, I think what EU-PEARL has done to build upon the CPT to expand it to the master protocol, sub-protocol use is what we anticipate for ICH M11 as well. Maybe just to tie in TransCelerate and ICH M11, TransCelerate also does have plans for one more update of the CPT to ensure content alignment with ICH M11. So there will be tools such as the ICHM11 template and the Common Protocol template, they'll be aligned and they can be built upon because we've built in that adaptability and flexibility.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Peter, I definitely want to get this question to you. There are a couple of questions around global applicability. Were FDA guidances reviewed? Are there any European guidances? Has this template or the tools from EU-PEARL been tested in various global markets? Can you add some points around global applicability?
I mean, the intent in the development was to ensure that trials could be conducted as global trials, which is why, as part of the process, we went and sought FDA and EMA feedback as well as CTCG feedback as part of the process, because obviously, as the guidelines continue to evolve, both at the FDA and EMA, as the FDA has a draft master protocol guidance that's under review at present based on the industry feedback, and the EMEA has a position letter with a new guidance planned out possibly as soon as the end of the year or early 2025. So the full intent was to see the big picture, and obviously when we had as part of our stakeholder management meetings, we brought in people from the FDA as well as both national and the EMA health authorities to be part of the discussion. We had at international conferences, we also had panel discussions on different aspects of the master protocols with FDA as well as EMA participation, make sure we were getting as much feedback as we could from all the key stakeholders.
Thank you. I think we are closing in on time. I do want to give a final thank you to all of our presenters and including to Cecile and all of the team members who made these deliverables possible. For our registrants, our attendees today, we will provide out links. Again, the questions are very valuable, so if you have any that weren't answered and you want to throw them into the question pane before you drop, we'll take those into consideration. While the sustainability of these initiatives, right, there's a life cycle to the initiatives. You can see that the folks here are very active in this space, and I imagine will continue to be involved, whether it's through TransCelerate, EU-PEARL, or other other ventures, and I'm sure they would appreciate the feedback. A final word, we do have an upcoming event that may be of interest to you. Mary Lynn had mentioned the Unified Study Definition Model and digitizing the protocol, and we have an upcoming webinar to that topic happening later this month, so we would invite you all to join that as well. And a final thank you to all those who joined today. We really appreciate the sharing the outputs of these initiatives with you. And with that, thank you everyone. Have a great day.